There are few things more dangerous in politics than blind ambition driven by rhetoric. Nowhere is this clearer than in Labour's so-called housing revolution, spearheaded by Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner. The promise of 1.5 million homes within 5 years has garnered headlines and applause, but it is a promise that seems destined to implode under the weight of its own hubris. The ambitious plan, which promises to reshape the housing market, is quickly becoming a political albatross, a glossy, well-packaged fantasy designed to mask the deep flaws in the Labour Party's approach to an issue that is already far beyond their control. Let's start with the obvious. The housing target is a pipe dream. Even if Rayner and her team continue to push their reforms with unrelenting zeal, the target of constructing 1.5 million homes in just 5 years is wildly unrealistic. The fact that the UK currently builds approximately 200,000 homes annually makes the idea of tripling this figure absurd on its face. Even with a new planning and infrastructure bill designed to cut through the bureaucratic red tape, it's difficult to imagine how Labour could possibly overcome the monumental obstacles standing in their way. One could argue that the current state of the construction industry makes this promise more about political posturing than pragmatic policymaking. Industry leaders have already voiced their concerns. Steve Tyner, executive director of the Home Builders Federation, astutely pointed out that reforms to the planning system alone won't drive the surge in construction required to meet Labour's target. What Tyner, and many others, know is that the supply side of housing doesn't operate in a vacuum. Even if Labour waves its magic policy wand, the fundamentals remain stubbornly intact. High land prices, skyrocketing mortgage costs, and a crippling shortage of affordable lending. These are the real barriers to homeownership in the UK, and none of Labour's measures, however ambitious, can erase the economic forces at play. Without targeted, meaningful interventions on these fronts, Labour's 1.5 million homes goal is nothing more than political theatre, a narrative designed to placate the masses rather than deliver tangible results. Meanwhile, prospective homeowners are being squeezed out of the market by the very forces that have caused the housing crisis in the first place. How can Labour, in good faith, promise to create a vast number of new homes when first-time buyers are already struggling with mortgage rates that make homeownership a distant dream? Those who find themselves locked into long-term renting are hardly going to be reassured by Labour's promises of a construction boom, especially when the cost of living continues to rise unchecked. It is nothing short of insulting to suggest that this plan will meaningfully address the very real and growing housing inequality that exists across the nation. The failings of Labour's housing vision become even clearer when you look at the logistics. The UK's planning system is already understaffed, and Labour's housing plan risks further bogging down the process. According to the Royal Town Planning Institute, planning teams have lost 25% of their workforce in the past 5 years. With fewer planners to process applications, how can we possibly expect anything resembling a housing boom? The simple fact is, even if Labour has good intentions, they have not reckoned with the immense structural limitations that govern the planning and construction industries. To believe that these limitations will bend to Labour's will in 5 years is the height of naivety. But perhaps the most alarming aspect of Labour's plan isn't its unfeasibility, it's the way it bulldozes through democratic processes and local governance. Rayner's measures to curtail the power of local planning committees in favour of centralised government decision-making are nothing short of authoritarian. In the name of expedience, Labour is willing to strip local communities of their say in the future of their neighbourhoods. This is not merely a policy oversight, it's an assault on local democracy. The idea that major housing decisions should be made by faceless government officials rather than the communities they directly affect is a betrayal of the principles Labour claims to champion. People are not pawns in some political game. They are citizens who deserve a voice in the decisions that shape their lives. Rayner's actions, whether she realises it or not, are eroding trust in the very democratic institutions that her party should protect. Then there's the issue of rural Britain. In yet another brazen attempt to justify Labour's housing agenda, Rayner's government plans to remove key protections for greenbelt land, clearing the way for large-scale developments in rural areas. This reckless plan threatens to destroy the character of historic villages and irreparably damage the countryside. By reducing these areas to little more than empty spaces for endless housing estates, Labour risks erasing centuries of cultural and historical significance. The long-term damage this will do to Britain's rural identity cannot be overstated. Labour's insatiable hunger for development is poised to obliterate the essence of what makes this country so unique. To support Labour's housing plan is to ignore the reality of what it means to build 1.5 million homes in a time of economic uncertainty, with rising costs, a broken planning system, and an overtaxed construction sector. It is to accept the hollow promises of a party desperately clinging to a political agenda that seems more concerned with image than results. The ambition of the plan is clear, but the follow-through is as empty as the homes they will fail to build. Angela Rayner and her team must face the fact that the housing agenda is not a solution, it's a distraction. A distraction from the very real, structural issues plaguing the housing market that Labour's reforms will only paper over. Until Labour comes to terms with the economic and logistical realities at play, the housing revolution will remain exactly that, a revolution in name only.